All right, so we are looking at the 1950s, the period just after World War II. We just saw women having possibilities. Right, we said 6 million women enter the workforce, and we had women with access to the military. But now there's this sense of like trying to get things back to like everything's felt like it's been out of control, right? We had World War II. Before that was the Great Depression. Before that was the 20s, and then before that was World War One. So now there's a sense of like let's just get back to like life as it is defined as being normal. And in this context, it would be to be white, to be middle class, to have that white picket fence, husband, wife, 3.5 children, the sense of being normal. We could kind of think about what we're doing here in the 1950s. We're setting up that ideal, like what things were supposed to be, whether or not women actually had that life. But that ideal, we could think about that in the same way that we looked at the ideal and the call to domesticity about 100 years earlier. There's lots of similarities between like that period in the 30s and 40s and 50s of the 1800s and here in the 1950s, 100 years later. The difference, though, is the expert opinions. Because we said in the 19th century, in that call to domesticity, a woman, it was her space, she was in charge of it. Now, all this science that we talked about, which science is good, although sometimes, right, it's not used in good ways. And the examples we have here in terms of these expert opinions that lead women to kind of question themselves. And so that's maybe where we have a little difference between the 1950s and say the 1850s, or these expert opinions. So just a quick kind of overview of some of the things on the outline here. The first thing you have there is the marriage and birth rates. And you've got actually in the appendix of your textbook, if you look in the back, it's the appendix, it's A17. There's a chart that has birth rates, and you can see the spike for the baby boom. In 1946, the first year of baby boom, there was one baby born every 10 seconds. One baby every 10 seconds in 1946. And then your textbook points out between 1948 and 1953, 1948 to 1953, just 5 years, there's more babies born in those 5 years than in the previous 30 years combined. So that gives you just a sense, right? 1948 to 1953, more babies born in those 5 years than the previous 30 years combined. So that's the baby boom for you. All these children being born, and the film clip you have is going to look at that. The MRS degree is a term that we're just using to talk about this period where women are supposed to be in the home, their job is to be a wife, their job is to be a mother. It comes from this idea that increasingly more people have access to college in the 50s, in large part because of the GI Bill. But the idea was that when a woman went to college, they would ask her, like, why are you going to college? What degree are you going to get, right? You asked that today, like, what's your major? And kind of the flip response in the 1950s for a woman, it wasn't really flip, it was actually kind of true too, is she was going to college to get an MRS degree, to become a Mrs. She was going to college to find a husband. So that's where that term specifically comes from. I've given you some, usually what we do, I said in the module, is I bring all these magazines in and we look at them while we watch the film clip. So I've given you a couple of sites where you can kind of get a sense of some of those magazines and how women are portrayed, and you've got some images in your textbook too. So we can kind of pull all those together. But if you've got any questions, you can use those in the module. Take care.
Let me show you how we do stuff around here.
Actually, my department uses Monday.com, so